In this lesson, we're going to review how to get an FK system to work in our PostSpace joint tools. So with that, let's get started. So if we open up our scene here, we'll see that we have a couple of changes that were made. This is mostly just so that we don't have to go through the tutorial to any extended amount. So you could see right here we have an IK-FK control. We add the attribute where we just add an IK-FK switch to it. We have ourselves an FK control, and our FK control has a locator attached to it. Let's just freeze the transforms out. So our locator is called FK control lock. Let's add trans to this to make it easier to dissect later if we have to. We'll call this one trans IK lock. So we basically just added two more locators to the scene, and one of them is parented to our FK control. We see this larger circle here, and what it's going to do is demonstrate a strange phenomena that happens in Maya, which is why we're going to be looking at world space and local space. So if we rotate this out, we could see that any one of these curves could be the parent of our locator here. If we try to move it though, you'll see that while this has moved 4.865, this also has, but they're in different world spaces or local spaces. So anytime something is instantly grouped, it's subject to the group's uniform scale. So for this here, if we were to move it to 1, it would have no effect on how far it moved because it's the object itself. If we were to go to our group node, we can see that it shrunk the size of it, and also they're going to move one exactly alike. Since we're going to be scaling our tools often, we never really want to do anything that's going to try to get the translations from one group in through and out of itself into another group. That would just cause those sort of problems. But our rotational values, though, will always work. So we can just go here and delete this group. So now that we know that this works, what we want to do is open up our connection editor. We're going to use some trickery so that we could get both things working and get our FK-IK switch working also. So let's pull up our connection editor. Let's grab our legs PV and our IK, and we're going to put the translations on these. So there we go. Now that we have our translation on our pole vector, what we want to do, let's actually undo this for a second. Modify and freeze. So now we could move this one directly over. Let's actually step back one so that we could see what the hierarchy looks like. So if we open up our tool here, you can see the FK is under the PST, TJ, JT groups. So it is underneath our group, mostly for scaling purposes, but it's its own thing. So it exists on its own. The second NURBS curve is our bottom control. So the question is, where does this locator live? Well, if we look at it, it lives in the same world as our locator. They are in the exact same world. So what we're going to do from this point on is we're going to grab our locator and then we're going to constrain it. We're going to go to constrain, point constrain. Now we're going to go into our IK-FK switch, or actually we should find our locator. So there's our constraint. You see how there's an offset? We don't want there to have to be an offset. So the easiest thing to do, move that forward so that's locked in place. And when we do this, offset should always be at 0 when you want to make one of these switches and you don't want any jumping. So now with the pole vector constraint selected, we're going to go to animate, set driven keys, set. And these two are what we want to control. And obviously our IK-FK switch will be the driver. So there it is. We have the IK-FK switch turned on to 10. So that means that we want our IK group set to 1 and our FK group set to 0. So we select them, we key them. We go back to our IK-FK switch, go to 0, go back, and we reverse the connections. And now you can see how it's going to help control our automatic hips. Now this can be parented anywhere. It's just a switch. That's really going to be its only job. So you can see how the IK is moving. And now we have it on the FK. So our switch is complete. And this is the way you would get it all done. Now, we're not going to be using any FK. Let's see. Oh, whoops, we selected the wrong thing. Now, we're not going to be using any FK in our rig, but this is the way you would do it if you wanted it done. So that's it for this lesson. I hope you enjoyed it and answered any questions. There is one other thing though. This control here, just like in motion flow rigging, what you would do is directly connect its rotational values. So you would make another control on the outside on the leg that's parented underneath the hip, and even underneath the controller that's influenced by these controls. As long as you don't orient constrain them and you do a direct, and let's do one right here, and you do direct rotational values. So what I mean by direct rotational values is we select here our outside. So this one is will be our real world FK, and this one will be our other FK. So the one in the group exactly as it is. As long as we just simply do a direct connect, we'll have a working motion flow, enhanced IK rig. So those are the only things to keep in mind. With that, let's finish our video and continue on with the rest of the lessons, and I will catch you in the next video.